Welcome to Study Loop.
In this example, we are working with the labor market for an individual firm and the market as a whole for the pencil market. And we're assuming that both of these markets are perfectly competitive, and we're given that the market wage is $150 per day. Part A here is asking us to identify what the profit maximizing amount of labor rule would be, and we know that that's where price is equal to marginal revenue. And then part B is asking us to identify or to calculate what the price of a box of pencils is if the marginal product of the last worker hired is 30 boxes of pencils. So let's go ahead and let's jump back to part A here to this profit maximizing rule and recognize the fact that our marginal revenue right here is really equal to our marginal product times our price. And that's going to be equal to our wage, which was 150 as given to us. So we're now going to use this piece of information, that marginal product times price is equal to 150, to calculate the price of a box of pencils. So assuming, as was given to us, that this marginal product is equal to 30, I'm going to multiply that by P because we're trying to find price and setting that equal to 150. Then all we need to do is solve for P to get what that price of a box of pencils is. That tells us that the price of a box of pencils is equal to $5. We did that by taking 150 divided by 30. All right, now part C and D right here, what we want to do is first start by sketching out the supply and demand curves within the pencil market as a whole and within this individual firm's market. So we know that we're always, for this pencil market, we have a upward sloping supply curve and we have a downward sloping demand curve. And then for this firm market, what we have is still a nice downward sloping demand curve. That hasn't changed. But our supply curve here is instead horizontal. And what we were told initially is that our wage in this market is 150. So we can put that information in, and that's going to be the same in the firm. They're going to be forced to accept that labor, that market wage, because it's perfectly competitive. They're not going to go any higher or lower than that. They're just going to take what wage the market is giving them. But now what we want to do for part D here is we're assuming that some of these workers within the pencil market have decided to switch to the computer industry. So as a result of them switching to the computer industry in this overall pencil market, we're going to see our supply of labor decrease. So our supply curve is going to shift to the left from S note to S1. And as a result, we also see our wage increase. So our wage is going to go from 150 up to some new wage, but we know that that is higher than what it was. Now, as a result of the wage increasing within the pencil market, going back to the fact that both of these markets are perfectly competitive, that means that this individual firm is going to have to accept that new wage. So we see the supply curve maybe shift upward, but we see that price change. So our new price has gone from 150 up to that same W1. So we're seeing an increase in the wages as a result right here. Now, this increase in a number of workers would typically decrease marginal product of labor, and it works the other way as well. So because we're seeing this reduction of supply, as we saw in this pencil market over here, our supply reduced from S note to S1, we're going to see is the marginal product of labor at this individual firm is going to increase because they now have fewer workers. So overall, even though we saw in the firm market that supply curve looks like it shifted upwards, really it was just showing that our wages were increasing, but they have fewer workers, right? You see the supply curve went up. However, we were sitting over here at Q0 and now we're at Q1. So our quantity of labor has gone down. So because the quantity goes down, we see this marginal product of labor increase because there's fewer workers now.